Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou, and I am sad to inform you that my mother has passed away. As many of you may know, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are mourning and trying to come to terms with the passing of my beloved mother. And I've announced it a couple of days ago, a few days ago. And I thought it would be an opportunity to really reflect on the concept of death, this reality that everyone will experience directly and with family members. And I also wanted to just remember my mom and share with you some facts about her life, her struggles, my relationship with her, the importance that she had to me in my life, and also lessons that hopefully will benefit us all. And I'm going to be looking at the chat as well. I really was overwhelmed by messages of condolences and support, the dua that everyone has been making. I really appreciate that. It makes a big difference. So if you can, remember her in your dua and pray for her forgiveness. Pray that she faces no pain or punishment in the akhirah, in the qabr, in the grave, and that Allah accepts her into Jannah. That is greatly appreciated by me and by her. So please continue to do that. So you might have noticed that over the past year, I have been kind of off and on with the channel, off and on. Like there'll be some weeks or a couple of weeks where there's no Haqiqatjou, there's no content being uploaded. And this is because my mom was battling cancer, and I'll give you the whole story of that. And so I live in Houston, and she lives in California. She lived in California, and so I would fly back and forth frequently, and just to be with her, help take care of her. And my stepdad was doing a lot, obviously, to take care of her. I live in Houston. My elderly dad is here as well. And so, I'm with him. But given the situation for over the past year, I've just been going back and forth and spending a lot of time with my mom, obviously. So I'll give you more information and detail about that just so that you can understand if some people who have gone through this already with a sick parent, you know the experience well. If you haven't gone through that, then it's good to get a heads up. It's good for you to understand what it's like so that you can prepare yourself mentally and maybe even practically prepare yourself, because it's arguably the hardest thing that you'll experience, and the worst day that you'll experience is the day that your parents die. But there are other experiences that might be greater than that. For example, the death of a child. That's arguably worse. So may Allah protect us and not allow us to experience that. And it kind of brings into a lot of perspective the fact that you have our Palestinian brothers and sisters, or you have, our brothers and sisters in Kashmir or in Syria now, or in other places around the world. They're losing their parents in a day, and their children and their grandparents, because of bombings or lynchings or massacres. So this is the kind of thing that people, Muslims, believers are experiencing to a much greater extent. And it's always good to remember that as well. So let me, again, I appreciate your dua. I appreciate any super chats as well that you send, and I will read them. I'll pause later in order to do that. But let me talk about my mom's background. So she was born in Shiraz in Iran, and her parents, her father was Muhammad Hussein, and her mother was Khadija, or as pronounced in Farsi, Khadija. Khadija is the Farsi pronunciation. So she was the only child. She was their only daughter, and she was raised in Shiraz as well as other cities within Iran. And, she had an okay childhood, some challenges, some difficulties growing up, as many have. She ended up moving to the US after marrying my father. And this was after the revolution. So when the revolution happened in Iran, she was in her early 20s, 1979. So that's she experienced that. She was in Iran, but she married my father about 4 years after the revolution, 4 or 5 years. And then my dad had already been in the US for many years, pre-revolution. And then my mom came over with him, and she did not speak English. She had to learn how to speak English. She was very isolated because she didn't really have any family in America. And I was born shortly after. And she had many challenges as someone who is in the US, doesn't really have other family other than my dad. And yeah, it's a long distance. It's not like today where you have Skype or Zoom or any of those kinds of technologies to really easily communicate with your family back home. You can make calls, but the calls are usually very expensive, or you have to make the calls at certain times of the day to reach another country, especially Iran, which is didn't at that time have necessarily the best telecommunication system. And you have to, sometimes the voice quality is not very good. There's a delay, so it's difficult to communicate. So these are some of the challenges that she had. But the biggest challenge that she really had was when she lost her daughter. So she had 2 children, myself and my younger sister, Donna. And that was really the biggest challenge, tragedy in her life, in our lives. And it really had a major impact, caused a lot of depression and sadness, as you can imagine. Because especially the way, like my sister, if you don't know, she went missing. She went missing back in 2007, and it's still not clear where she is, what happened to her. It's not really known, and so you can imagine as a parent losing your child in that kind of way. It's the worst nightmare that you can imagine. And I don't really talk about these things and share publicly. And part of the reason is there are these disgusting people. Disgusting people. How many debates have I been in where the opponent is lost for words, has no clue how to respond to the argument, so they just attack my sister, or even in some cases my dad or other family members. And I'm sure that already you have these trolls who are attacking my mom, if you can imagine. If it's someone that is coming from a Hindu persuasion or a Jewish persuasion, or some Christians, that's kind of, or atheists, you expect that from some of them, not all. Some of them are really that vile, but when you get from Muslims, that's kind of disgusting. That's really sad that Muslims would resort to these kinds of tactics. You believe in Allah on the last day, and you're using the death of a family member to score points. Whatever. This is something that you have to get used to if you're going to have a public presence and you're going to talk about it politically incorrect issues and try to defend Islam against these enemies. Anyway, but I don't want to dwell too much on that. Just wanted to make a point. Like, that's the reason that you can't be as open, especially for me. I'm more of a reserved person anyway. But just because of that situation, I can't really talk very openly about personal matters. But in this case, I think it's worth talking about my mom and really remembering her and sharing a lot of things about her with you, because it helps me as well to say these things. And so my mom endured a lot of challenges, and then she got cancer in 2011. So about 13 years ago, she was diagnosed with a cancer called sarcoma. It's a soft tissue cancer, and it's a very bad cancer. It's a very bad cancer because you can't really get rid of it. Even if you eliminate the tumors, the scans, like the CT scans that you take, will show that there's no cancer in the body. But even if there are a few cancerous cells that won't show up in the scan, it can still come back. It can still come back. And there's another well-known imam who has sarcoma, Sheikh Haytham Haddad in the UK, and you may know him. And he also is suffering from sarcoma. He's been public about it. And I did talk to him last year, and he had some great advice for my mom. And so may Allah preserve the Sheikh. He has fought back against sarcoma, and Allah preserve him and increase his life. Ameen Ya Rab, and increase the good that we see from his work. But yeah, Sheikh Haytham is another figure who has had this cancer, sarcoma. Anyway, she treated it, and the treatment was not the worst, like in terms of harshness. It was through radiation, reducing the size of the tumor, which was in her abdomen, in the tissue in the abdomen, not affecting an organ, so they could treat it with radiation to reduce the size and then extract it through surgery. So it was difficult, but it wasn't anything like what she was going to experience, because in 2017, she got breast cancer, and not sarcoma. So this is another cancer that she got in 2017, and it was past stage 2, basically on the or in the danger of getting to stage 3 or 4. And so she had to take chemotherapy, and that was very harsh. And that's the thing that people have to realize about chemotherapy. And again, I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not giving any medical advice, but chemotherapies are extremely harsh, and they're carcinogenic. The cancer treatments will cause you to have more cancer. That's the irony of this approach, using chemotherapy to fight cancer. The chemotherapy itself, it's both the cure and the poison. And so that kind of treatment that she got, it just really is painful. It causes you to lose your hair, for example, which can be very psychologically traumatizing. It causes you to be nauseated constantly, very weak, because the whole point of it's like this harsh chemical that they're injecting into your body. And this harsh chemical, it goes through cycles. So maybe your cycle is every 3 weeks, you get what's called an infusion. That's what many chemotherapies are infusion based, where it's intravenous into your bloodstream, and it's on a cycle every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you have to do a certain number of cycles. and it's usually limited, like 4 cycles, 5 cycles, because if you continue taking it beyond that, it'll literally kill you. That's how chemotherapy operates. It's poison, and the goal is to poison or destroy the cancer cells, but a lot of healthy cells are being destroyed as well. And some chemotherapies, the mechanism is to prevent the growth of new cells so that the tumor that is being targeted will reduce in size, but that your body constantly needs to generate cells to stay healthy. And if you don't regenerate cells, then your body is going to slowly fall apart. And you're not gonna have energy. You're gonna feel sick. Sometimes your smell or taste changes drastically. You can't really eat food. Everything is making you nauseated. My mom, even drinking water would make her nauseated at certain points. So you lose weight, you age. Like you might be in your 40s or 50s and you're going to age 20 years. You're going to age 30 years and you're going to become a feeble old person, even though you were in the, the effervescence of youth. So that's the nightmare of chemotherapy. And when it's just constant headaches, your head is throbbing. You might have major fluctuations in your blood pressure. You can't really walk. You have to use a walker or a wheelchair. You can't really bathe yourself. You can't go to the restroom yourself. And this is very difficult for someone, especially someone who's very independent minded or someone who is used to taking care of themselves, which is the case with my mom. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll talk more about the cancer, but I want to also talk about things that I loved about my mom, things that really were special about her. And she had a lot of amazing qualities. So one of the qualities that many of you might know or might not know rather, is that she was very artistic. She loved art. She loved creating art. And I want to share some of that. Here's, if you can see this. Like, can you see? You can't. Some of the green is coming. There's green in it. Maybe this is not the best. Here's. Let's see. These are paintings that she did, abstract paintings. She used different methods. Really beautiful, right? Different acrylic paint. She could paint with acrylic. She could paint with oil paints, on canvas, on paper. This is my favorite. So, yeah, so from a young age, she would do a lot of art. And I did a lot of art as well. Up and through high school, I did a lot of art. Maybe one day I'll share some of my drawings, paintings with you. I won some awards even for art. So maybe one day I'll share some of that. But that artistic ability I got from my mom. She really was great at that, mashallah. So these are just a few. She has so many paintings, so many canvases that she has created art, and her artistic style also evolved over time. Her art became more abstract over time. She would do still lifes earlier using either paint or colored pencils, and so we would keep her art. So yeah, that's one of her amazing qualities, is her artistic ability. She also, one of the amazing qualities that she had was obviously very strong, very strong to endure like all of these challenges that she had. And she would keep going. She wouldn't let these obstacles in life stop her. These tragedies, she wouldn't let that stop her. She continued to fight and struggle. And that was really one of her most amazing qualities. And she made other people stronger as well, those around her, because she was inspiring. She inspired that kind of strength when you saw how much she was going through in life and kept her head above water. And that was especially the case over the past, 18 years or 17 years since since my sister went missing. She really exemplified that. But really the most distinct quality of my mom, and what I associate my mom with, and others associate my mom with this as well, is her honesty. She was honest to a fault. What you saw was what you got. She would not hide anything from you. She would not pretend. She would not say what you wanted to hear. She was extremely honest, not only in her personal interactions, but also just in her dealings with other people. She would never lie. She considered lying to be the biggest betrayal, the biggest crime. Honesty was the most important thing. And she really emphasized that to us growing up. And the biggest disappointment for her was if we were not honest with her as kids. So that's one of the main characteristics that she had is just being very honest, and like I said, to a fault. Like if she didn't really agree with something or she didn't really understand something, she wouldn't pretend just for the sake of appearances or for the sake of just getting along with you. She would just tell you. I don't really agree with that. I don't think that that's correct. That doesn't mean she was stubborn. If you talked to her or explained to her and gave her a different perspective, she would consider it, and sometimes she would change her views. But she was just very honest and wore her feelings or wore her thoughts on her sleeve, hard on her sleeve, and transparent, basically. And that's really the quality that I got from my mom as well, either from her direct teaching of it or from her influence, or genetically got from my mom. So yeah, those three qualities I wanted to share of many others that she has, but those are the most prominent, is her artistic ability, her strength, and her honesty. And may Allah reward her and forgive her, because and she would always that was her hope. Actually, her hope is that Allah would forgive her because she was honest, and she expressed that throughout her life. But definitely in the last 6 months, the last year, she would say, I hope Allah forgives me because I always wanted to be honest. My whole life I tried to be honest. So now continuing to talk about the cancer. So 2017, she beat the breast cancer. Alhamdulillah. She beat the breast cancer. It's very difficult, the chemotherapy. Then, so she was cancer free. It lasted for about 3 years. Then in around 2021, the sarcoma came back. And this time it was on an organ, 2 organs, the pancreas and the liver. And the doctor said she needs to get chemotherapy again. So she was getting it. She was getting chemotherapy, and it was just as awful as always. Went through 4 or 5 cycles. Alhamdulillah, the thing is that with chemotherapy, it's always a gamble, because you don't necessarily know, the doctor doesn't necessarily know if if that chemical is going to actually reduce the tumor size and kind of hollow out the tumor. You hope. So you go through that infusion process, you go through the suffering, and then you get another scan, and you see, according to the CT scan, how the tumor has responded or not responded. But again, thankfully, the tumors were responding. They're reducing in size, and they got to a point where the tumor could be removed through an operation. So this was very invasive removal from the pancreas. They had to remove basically a big chunk of the pancreas, and they had to remove a big chunk of the liver. And when you do that, when you remove parts of organs, it becomes very dangerous. And so she had that, and it was difficult, but she made a recovery, alhamdulillah. And this was also a very difficult time in 2021, because it's COVID, this massive operation on the world population, and it's extremely frustrating. It was extremely frustrating because of the policies that were put in place. You couldn't go to the hospital. They put restrictions on who could actually go to the hospital to accompany my mom. Only one family member at a time, right? So you want to go and see your mom every single day, but this hospital is not allowing more than one family member at a time per day. And they're giving you requirements, like you have to be injected, vaccinated, or you have to get tested with a certain test, like what were they called? PCR tests. You have to go get tested if you just want to go to see your sick mom, whether she's going for the infusion or she's in the operation. After the operation, it was just very difficult. So, yeah, that's what we were going through. And yeah, the situation. And now, like, you have officials who admit, like, yeah, we just made it all up. The 6 feet rule, we made that up. The masking, we made that up. Like, literally under oath, they admit these things. And people had to go through so much suffering. They had to be at a distance. Like, you weren't able to see your sick family members except behind a glass in some cases. Like, imagine the torture that they put people through. And there's no accountability, of course. There's nothing, for these officials, they don't really see any consequences for the things that they did to enrich themselves. That's ultimately what it was about. And yeah, so I was public about, all my views on this so-called pandemic, but maybe you didn't know this dimension of it. Like, personally suffered a lot because of this bullshit. Anyway, that's that was her third bout with cancer, the third. So she beat it again. That's 3 times she's beaten cancer. So you can imagine her strength, and others would just give up, like, after once or 2 times getting, like, just whatever happens, I don't want to go through this again, this treatment, I don't want to bother. She went through it 3 times. And then in 2023, it came back. And this time it was much more aggressive, and it was inside the liver, and it was spreading to other parts of the body. And the tumors were just much more aggressive, growing much faster. So that's what she was battling for the past year and a few months. and she was getting chemo. The doctors from the beginning, the prognosis wasn't good. They could see that this was much more aggressive, and it was difficult for my mom and other family members to process and to come to terms and accept that this is the, this is terminal. But they tried different treatments, other chemotherapy. They would try for a couple of weeks and then scan. What is the effect of the chemo? Did it actually have an effect? No. Okay, try another drug. Try another drug. Try another drug. At this time, I was also encouraging her to try alternative treatments as well. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm not giving you medical advice. But I was encouraging my mom to try alternatives. And I think the alternatives had as much effect as chemo did. That's my observation. Allahu alam if that's the case, but I was telling my mom that it's a good idea to be open, like don't take whatever these doctors are saying as being objective or necessarily correct or accurate. And I mean, that was what I was telling her for many years. But I think it could have had a positive impact. Some of these alternative treatments, I did a lot of research, and it's something worth considering for anyone who's going through that. Come to your own conclusions. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. But so she was going through that, and the situation just wasn't getting better. The tumors were not responding to the chemo, to the treatment. And until a certain point, she said to the doctor, like, okay, I'm done. Like, this is really not a good quality of life. I don't want any more harsh treatments. And just whatever happens, it's in Allah's hands. And so the doctor said, well, you have 6 months. You have 6 months. And after he said that, she passed after just a little bit over a month. And so she was under hospice care. And hospice care is for those who are terminally ill. They don't really have any options in terms of getting better. So they're put under palliative care or hospice care. And the good thing about it is, depending on your condition, you can stay at home. So she was at home, and she was there at her own house, and I was there. And that's much better than being in a hospital or being in some facility. So that's another thing for people to keep in mind. But one of the things that hospice gave us was a book. And this book describes the process of death. And it's a difficult thing to read. Because again, it's like your mortality is becoming more and more clear. And we all have like a theoretical concept of death. Like, oh yeah, we're going to die someday. And it's more theoretical, it's more abstract. But that's very different than really understanding your mortality and feeling it. Like, that's something that you feel, and it's like a sinking feeling. And you can get a taste of it without being terminally ill. But the only time that you really feel it is when you have a terminal illness, and you have time to reflect, you have time to think about your mortality. Then that's the sinking feeling that really drives you into a different state of mind. a different state of mind that you otherwise would not experience. So this book, it just makes it very, very real. And it's a short book, and I'm going to read it to you. It's very short, but it really helps you take that abstract concept of death and make it very real in a way that I hadn't experienced before. But it's painful. Like, my mom didn't really read it, and that's understandable. She was going through it. But if you have this expectation, I think it helps. I think it helps. And I think that's why they give it to people in hospice care. They give it so that you know what to expect. Not knowing what to expect, it becomes very scary. And it becomes difficult to cope. Because usually when you are dealing with like medical professionals, the expectation is that you're going to get better. Every day you're going to get better. Or there's going to be like, okay, you haven't responded positively. We're going to try something else so that you do respond positively. That's like always the expectation. And then if you go from that background of medical care to hospice or palliative care, it's completely a different paradigm. The expectation is that you're going to get worse. Every day you're going to get worse. And when you get worse, or when you see your loved one getting worse, you want, okay, what can we do to make you better? And then you get hit with the reminder, if you're conscious enough, that no, there is no getting better. There is no treatment. There is nothing that you can give her or him that is going to improve the vital signs or her condition or her feelings. There's nothing. The only thing that they give you in hospice care is pain relief, trying to make you as comfortable as possible, reduce your pain as much as possible, try to get rid of some of the anxiety that you have. That's the only kind of treatment. It can't even be called treatment. That's the only thing that is going to be available to you. They don't even give you an IV. Like, if you're dehydrated, they don't even hook you up to an IV to get fluids into your system. Like, that's not considered part of hospice care. So it's a different paradigm. And I want to read you this book because it's really eye-opening, and maybe it will help you. Okay. The book is called Gone From My Sight: The Dying Experience. Each person approaches death in their own way, bringing to this last experience their own uniqueness. What is mentioned here is simply a guideline, a roadmap. Like any map, there are many roads arriving at the same destination, many ways to enter the same city. Use this guideline while remembering there is nothing concrete here. All is very, very flexible. Any one of the signs in this booklet may be present. All may be present, none may be present. For some, it will take months to separate from their physical body. For others, only minutes. Death comes in its own time, in its own way. Death is as unique as the individual who is experiencing it. So just because this might be my mom's experience, what I saw, that might not be the experience of anyone in your life. May Allah protect your families, but this is just a general description. If the following signs were to be put on a timetable, a very flexible timetable, we could say these changes begin 1 to 3 months before death occurs. So this is 1 to 3 months. The actual dying process often begins within the 2 weeks prior to death. There is a shift that occurs within a person that takes them from a mental processing of death to a true comprehension and belief of their own mortality. Unfortunately, this understanding is not always shared with others. So you see this shift happen, and I saw it with my mom as well. You go from this kind of just the idea of death, it's more abstract, theoretical, to a realization that I will die and it's imminent, and that you can see it in their eyes. You can see that change. I could see that the change in my mom's eyes, also in the way that she was talking. So that really rang true in the book. So 1 to 3 months prior to death, withdrawal. As the knowledge that, yes, I am dying becomes real, a person begins to withdraw from the world around them. This is the beginning of separation, first from the world, no more interest in newspapers or television, then from people, no more neighbors visiting, i.e. tell Aunt Jessie I don't feel like company today. And finally from the children, grandchildren, and perhaps even those persons most loved. So this is painful for people because your relative starts to withdraw. They are no longer themselves. They don't like the kind of interactions that you enjoyed with them. Like, for example, with my mom, like my relationship, I'll talk more about my relationship with my mom in a second, but like we would have jokes, we would have inside jokes. That was one of the main ways that I interacted with my mom, is through humor. But there's no more of that. Like, it's just that kind of sparkle in the eye, or the kind of wry smile on the lips, that goes away. And that's very difficult, like, to process. But that's just a natural process of dying. And it starts off with not interested in seeing relatives, not really interested in seeing. Eventually, it's not like they don't love you or they don't care about you, but they're just in another place. That's the best way to describe it. This is becoming a time of withdrawing from everything outside of oneself and going inside. Inside, where there is sorting out, evaluating oneself and one's life, but inside there is only room for one. This processing of one's life is usually done with the eyes closed, so sleep increases. That was the case with my mom. She just wanted to sleep. She was just in bed for 23 hours a day. She would only get up maybe to shift from the bed in her bedroom to the living room to sit. And even that started not doing that either, like just staying in the room. This processing of one's life is usually done with the eyes closed, so sleep increases. A morning nap is added to the usual afternoon nap. Staying in bed all day and spending more time asleep than awake becomes the norm. This appears to be just sleep, but know that important work is going on inside on a level of which outsiders aren't aware. With this withdrawal comes less of a need to communicate with others. Words are seen as being connected with the physical life that is being left behind. Words lose their importance. Touch and wordlessness take on more meaning. So yeah, someone who is very talkative, someone who enjoys talking and sharing, that no longer is there. They just don't really talk. They don't want to. When they do talk to you, it's like they're annoyed almost. Like, yeah, okay. And you just are reduced to things like, well, what can I bring you to eat? What can I get you? How can I make you more comfortable? Or you just do all the talking. Like, I would just talk to my mom about memories, where we went, what we did, things that happened, happy memories to communicate. And they just listen. They just listen, and words lose their importance, and touch is more important. So like holding your parents' hand, holding your mom's hand, massaging her back, just light touching, make sure that you're not causing any discomfort because they become extra sensitive. Just kissing on the forehead, kissing the hand. These are things that are more important. Just doing that as opposed to speaking and talking. Food. Food is the way we energize our body. It's the means by which we keep our body going, moving, and alive. We eat to live. When a body is preparing to die, it is perfectly natural that eating should stop. This is one of the hardest concepts for a family to accept. There is a gradual decrease in eating habits. Nothing tastes good. Cravings come and go. Liquids are preferred to solids. I just don't feel like eating, is what they'll say. Meats are the first to go, followed by vegetables and other hard to digest foods, until even soft foods are no longer eaten. It is okay not to eat. A different kind of energy is needed now. A spiritual energy, not a physical one, will sustain from here on. So yeah, that's very difficult. They have no interest in food, things that they would love to eat. You offer them things that they love to eat. They just don't have an interest, and you don't understand, because we associate eating with being healthy, like having a healthy appetite and being alive, and that just goes away. And it's hard to process that. It's hard to cope with that when it's your loved one. And it's interesting, like you go from meats, you give up the meats, you give up the vegetables. Suddenly it's just about soft foods, then it's about liquids. That's another interesting thing about death, is that you're reverting to a prior state. Your original state when you're born as a child, your original state in the dunya, of course, is that you will start with the mother's milk. You start with the liquids, then you slowly progress to soft foods, and then normal foods, and then meats. You can finally chew meat on your own. And then when you die, it reverses. You stop eating the meats, you stop eating the vegetables and the fruits, and then you have to revert to soft things like oatmeal or pudding, and then just pure liquids. Everything is a reversal. And also when it comes to words, as they said, like you start life without the ability to speak, and then you slowly develop the ability to utter nonsense, incoherent sounds, then words, and then until you have fully fledged speech. In dying, it's the opposite. You go from fully coherent sentences to just words, and then just yes or no, just agreement or non-agreement, then just sounds that are indecipherable. And it's so frustrating for someone who's there. Like, I can't understand what you want. Obviously, you don't express that frustration, but internally you're frustrated. Like, I can't understand my mom. I can't understand what she's saying. She loses the ability to speak. And then there's no words at all. So this was not something I was prepared for. And we know the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the ones whose last words are La ilaha illallah, their place is in Jannah. They're going to go to paradise. But what we don't realize is that you don't know exactly when you'll lose the ability to speak. So alhamdulillah, my mom, I told her to say the shahada, and she did. She said the shahada, And obviously, that's one of the things I want to mention as well, is that she was more God conscious, reading Quran, reading tafsir of the Quran. Like, that became much more significant for her in the last year, and then in the last 6 months especially. And so, alhamdulillah, she said the shahada. But the thing about the hadith is that your last words are la ilaha illallah, your very last words. And we sometimes take it for granted, like, oh, of course, I'll just say la ilaha illallah, and then the keys to paradise are there for me. But you don't know when those last words are going to come, and it's not clear. One moment she is able to speak, and she's saying, you ask, do you want something to eat? And she'll say yes. And that's it. No more speech. No more speaking. She can't speak anymore. So how can you predict that or prepare for that? There's no way. So this is really like, don't think you have control of your last words. You don't have control. You can't, like, your family members can't get you to say it and get you to speak at that last moment. That's purely fadl from Allah. You can try. Obviously, you try and you encourage, and that's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's details of this, because the sunnah takes into consideration that when someone's on their deathbed, if you just tell them, say la ilaha illallah, say la ilaha illallah, say la ilaha illallah, you could be annoying them. You could be annoying and causing them a disturbance. So don't necessarily do that. Sometimes the encouragement, you just say it for yourself, and hopefully they hear you and then they repeat it. But don't harass or don't harangue the dying loved one or whoever it may be to say la ilaha illallah, unless you think that it's someone who is not a Muslim. Maybe sometimes it's not a Muslim, like the Prophet ﷺ with Abu Talib, his uncle, or there was a Jewish boy, for example, in another narration or another situation was a Jewish boy. So in that case, yeah, you say la ilaha illallah. But if it's someone who's already a Muslim, you don't want to. They are not in a state to understand and to necessarily be cognizant of what you're telling them even. So don't annoy people. That's included in the sunnah. And if you read the fatwa on this situation, like what are the sunan of dying, like they'll make these kinds of distinctions and nuances, and that's the mercy of Islam. Like, that's the Sharia. The Sharia even takes into consideration like the annoyance of someone who is on their deathbed, not annoying people who are in that situation. Like, that's the mercy of Islam. So yeah, they don't eat, and it's okay not to eat. Going back to the book, a different kind of energy is needed now. A spiritual energy, not a physical one, will sustain them from here on. Disorientation. So we're still 1 to 2 weeks prior to death. Disorientation. Sleeping is most of the time now. A person can't seem to keep their eyes open. They can, however, be awakened from that sleep. There is literally one foot in each world. A person often becomes confused talking to people and about places and events that are unknown to others. They may see and converse with loved ones who have died before them. There may be picking at the bedclothes and agitated arm movements. There is a seeming aimlessness to all physical activity. Focus is changing from this world to the next. They're losing their grounding to earth, to dunya, basically. They are losing the grasp of dunya. And sleep is the majority situation. They can't keep their eyes open. That's 1 to 2 weeks prior. When you get closer, the eyes actually, it's much worse. The eyes are half open. And you don't know if they're sleeping or they're awake, because their eyes are not fully closed and they're not fully open. They're half open, and they just have an expressionless face. And they're still breathing, but they can't talk. They don't respond. when you ask them anything, when you talk to them. Yeah, so this is, then there's like hand movements, and that's difficult because you can't interpret like what is the hand, why is the hand moving? Are you uncomfortable? Are you in pain? Do you need something? But you don't know. You don't actually know what they want, what they're thinking, and it seems aimless. So that's the kind of difficulty that you'll have taking care of someone. But one of the things that I definitely want you to take away from what I'm describing to you is that you need to be there. As much as you can, you need to be there with your loved one, with your parents especially. Be by their side as much as you can. As much as you can. If you can sleep at the foot of their bed, try to do that. As long as you don't snore. If you snore, they might be annoyed by that. So if you snore, maybe avoid it. But you can sleep at the foot of their bed. You can be with them, hold their hand, and try as much as you can to be by their side. But this is what people will do is, that's the thing, like I said, that death in our culture is a theoretical concept, especially if you're living in majority of the world today. It's a theoretical concept. It's not like in pre-modern times, especially, where people are dying very frequently. Children are dying very frequently. There's just a higher mortality rate. There isn't like these services like hospice or nursing homes that will just take the elderly. You have to deal with your loved ones in your home, and you have to take care of them. And you really need to do that. You really need to go through that, and don't make excuses like, oh, I have work, I have other things, or I can't deal with this right now, or, psychologically I can't deal with this. No, you need to deal with it. You need to go through it. It's something that is very important part of life. And these are things that are just sanitized from our culture. We are not supposed to experience these things, and there's all kinds of mechanisms, like in terms of infrastructure and care for the sick and elderly, that separates us and sanitizes the whole dying process, separates us from the dying process. This is bad. This is bad for many reasons, spiritual reasons, but also, the Prophet ﷺ said, the wise one is the one who frequently remembers death. But we've been sanitized from death, and we have all these excuses. Structurally, we're separated, but also mentally and emotionally, we are conditioned to not think about death and to avoid these negative feelings, avoid these negative thoughts. Just be positive. Just be positive. Be looking to the future. Have hopes for the future. Well, sometimes you don't have any hope in this dunya. That's a feeling that you have to experience. And what I tell people, I have different people in life that they won't want to have kids, for example. They don't want to have children. They're like, children is too much responsibility. Having a child is too much stress, and I won't do a good job, and I can't really be a good parent. And one thing that I will point out to them is that there are so many emotions that you really can't experience in life unless you have a child. There are certain emotions that you can't really experience, like love, unless you have a child. The depth of love, you don't experience the depth of love, the full depth of it, for someone in the dunya, unless you have a child. Obviously, we know we love Allah and we love the Prophet ﷺ more than we love anyone, including our parents, including our children, including our own selves. But in terms of love for people in your life, The love of a spouse is not going to be like that. The love of a parent is not going to be like that. The love of a friend is not going to be like that until you have a child. That's when you have the full flavor, the full taste of love is when you have a child. But other emotions as well. Anxiety. You haven't really felt anxiety. It's not necessarily positive, obviously, but until you have children. So for those, we're told that, well, what's like from a secular materialist perspective, like what makes life worth living are experiences. The experiences that you have, like with travel and going different places and meeting different people and eating different foods. That's what life is all about, is just more experiences. That's like a hedonistic type of approach, but this is the contradiction. Like, if you truly care about experiencing all that life has to offer, then you need to experience having children. Because life just takes a whole different color. Like you're living without children, you're living life in kind of like a muted brown or like black and white. And then when a child comes into your life, that's when, wow, look at the color of the world. But it goes the other way as well. It goes the other way as well, that you need to have a healthy spiritual existence in this life. You need to experience the death up close and personal of those that you love. Don't shy away from it, and don't avoid it for your own benefit. For your own benefit. If you don't have the kind of compassion to want to be with your loved ones in all of the trials and tribulations, and it's hard, it's very hard, then at least do it for yourself. Do it for yourself because you need it. You need it. So that's my advice. Just don't avoid it. Go through that pain. And of course the loved one is going to appreciate that. They're going, for reasons I'll explain more in depth in a minute. Physical changes. There are beginning to be changes that show the physical body is losing its ability to maintain itself. The blood pressure lowers. There are changes in pulse speed, either increasing from a normal of 80 to upward of 150, or decreasing anywhere down to 0. The body temperature fluctuates between fever and cold. There is increased perspiration, often with clamminess. The skin color changes, flushed with fever, bluish with the cold, a pale yellowish pallor, not to be confused with jaundice, often accompanies approaching death. The nail beds, hands, and feet are often pale and bluish because the heart can't circulate the blood through the body at a normal flow. So one thing that you can do for your parents is, as they're getting to this state, the heart is not really able to reach the extremities of the body. Massage the feet of your parents. Like, massage their feet. That gives them comfort. Massage their, make sure it's not causing any pain, but just gently, like, massage their feet, massage their hand. That'll give them comfort. That's something that you can do. Breathing changes also occur. Respiration may increase from a normal 16 to 20 to upward of 40 or 50 breaths every minute, or decrease to 9 or even 6 breaths a minute. There can be a puffing, a blowing of the lips on exhaling, or actual stopping of the rhythmic breathing only to resume. This generally occurs during sleep. Congestion can also occur, a rattly sound in the lungs and upper throat. There might be a coughing with this, but generally nothing can be brought up. All of these breathing changes and congestion have a tendency to come and go. 1 minute, any or all of these symptoms may be present. The next minute, breathing may clear and be even. So these are the final breaths. So yeah, again, you can't tell, like, if the person is asleep or awake. That has its own challenge. Like, that's mentally exhausting, because you want to provide comfort to him or her. Like, I wanted to be there and make sure my mom knows she's not alone. I'm right by her side. So sometimes I want to talk to her, but what if she's asleep? I don't want to disturb her sleep. But you don't know if she's asleep. You don't know if she's asleep or awake. So, and the breathing maybe gives you some indication, but it's not definitive because her eyes are not fully open or fully closed, and she's not responsive to anything. But definitely, so imagine that. Like, imagine that this body that we all have, it will betray us. It will betray us in the sense that we will be trapped. We're trapped in a body that no longer is functioning, and it cannot really, our will, the will that we take for granted, like I will to, pick up this cup. I have a will and my body reacts to it, and we take that for granted. There'll come a day when you will something, you will think something, you will want to say something, you will want to do something, and there's nothing that you can do. And no one can help you either. So this body that we're so obsessed with preserving, and we want to maintain our youth. We pursue the best tasting foods. We pursue the best comforts. We pursue the best pleasures. And we neglect our duty to our Creator, to Allah. For the sake of our bodies, that body will betray you. It doesn't belong to you. Your body is not under your command. Allah only allows your body to be under your command for a limited amount of time. Then your lease is expired. And you're still alive in this dunya, and the lease is expired. That body that was under your service, the amana, the trust that you're given of your body, that it's expired. And then the reality is slowly going to dawn on you, until finally the angel of death comes and takes you out of that body. 1 to 2 days to hours prior to death. Sometimes there's a surge of energy. A person may talk clearly and alertly when before there had been disorientation. A favorite meal might be asked for and eaten when nothing had been eaten for days. A person might sit in the living room with relatives and visit when they hadn't wanted to be with anyone for quite a while. The spiritual energy for transition from this world to the next has arrived, and it's used for a time of physical expression before moving on. The surge of energy is not always as noticeable as the above examples, but in hindsight, it can usually be recognized. The 1 to 2 weeks signs that were present earlier become more intense as death approaches. Restlessness can further increase due to lack of oxygen in the blood. The breathing patterns become slower and more irregular. Breathing often stops for 10 to 15 and even 30 to 45 seconds before resuming. Congestion can be very loud. It can be affected by positioning on one side or the other. It still comes and goes. The eyes may be open or semi-open, but not seeing. There's a glassy look to them, often tearing. That's like the most unsettling part. The hands and feet now become purplish. The knees, ankles, and elbows are blotchy. The underside of the arms, legs, and back also become blotchy. Generally, a person becomes non-responsive, unable to respond to their environment, sometime prior to death. So that, for my mom, it happened way before like 1 or 2 days. She was non-responsive, I think 4 days, for 4 days of not being responsive. So that's the thing. Like, you can't prepare for the non-responsiveness. For me, that was the hardest part, to be honest with you. You don't know when it's gonna come. So what are the last things that your mom or your dad are gonna say to you? Something to think about. Something to reflect on. How we approach death is going to depend upon our fear of life, how much we participated. Wait, hold on. I think I missed a page. Yeah, so the minutes. Yeah. Anyway, so you can read the book I recommend it. Again, it's gone from my site. The last page or so just talks about the minutes prior to death, and it's the same thing. Like, all of those signs just intensify. The breathing becomes weaker. And that's when you know when the breathing becomes weaker is that it's just a matter of hours or minutes. The breathing just becomes much weaker. And that's the thing, like, you don't know when it's going to happen. That's why you have to be there the whole time. And even at night, like at night, I was not really able to sleep, or I didn't want to go to sleep, because what if I go to sleep and then I wake up and she's gone? So you can't really sleep. That's why it's good to sleep next to the bed. If you can't sleep next to the bed, then another thing that you can do is get a baby monitor. A baby monitor, and put the microphone close to the bed so that you can hear her breathing through the night. And if the breathing suddenly changes, you can quickly get up and go to your mom or your loved one. So that's my recommendation, is like a kind of baby monitor. But you can't really sleep, and you don't know exactly when is the time of death. Only Allah knows. So, yeah. So that's a very in-depth description. Mentally prepare yourself. Recognize these signs, so that you're ready to be there. You're ready to be there by her side, by his side. May Allah, allow your parents to have long lives, beneficial lives. But it's an inevitability. So you have to mentally prepare for it. And for me personally, knowing details, it helps me better. It helps me better than not knowing. So some of the memories that I have with my mom, I wanted to share with you. My relationship with my mom. My mom was the first one to teach me Aqidah. Aqidah I learned from my mom, actually, and I remember it very clearly. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I asked my mom to tell me what God looks like. What does God look like? And my mom, I was sitting in the car in the back seat, and my mom said that whatever you think that God looks like, if you try to imagine him, you won't be able to. He's nothing like what you can imagine. Basically, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. That's what my mom taught me at a young age, and that really, it's fitrah, right? This is something that's from the fitrah that everyone has, and she confirmed that and really made that a very clear belief that that was my first Aqidah lesson, is coming from my mom. So my mom also, just like any other mom, she would make my favorite foods. She was a very good cook. She actually learned how to cook from my mom, because when I was going to college, in graduate school, I needed to cook for myself. So I learned a lot about cooking from my mom. She would buy me clothes, even till the end, she was buying me clothes to wear. These are the things that moms do. And we had our inside jokes. We would joke around a lot. So there's like a funny joke. It's not a joke, but it's just inside, like, humor. Like, if I would do something stupid, there's an expression in Farsi. Magar is in Farsi, magar marazdari. Magar marazdari. Maraz, marad in Arabic. Maraz is like sick. Like, are you sick? Like, are you mentally sick? Like, you did something so stupid. Are you mentally sick? Like, that's the expression in Farsi. And so after a while, I turned it around. So she would say like, well, why did you do that? Like asking me about something that I did. Well, why did you do that? And I would say, maraz, mental sickness. That's why I did it. So maraz. I'd also say it like in a deranged way. Maraz, like I'm deranged. So she would always laugh at that. You know, she was, yeah, she did. She put up with me a lot. Like when I was a little kid, I would have like all little kids like having a temper tantrum, and you like hit, like I would just hit something like the wall, or I would hit, you know, a couch or something, a pillow. And like like that's how children like express their anger to parents, because you're not gonna, you know, hit your parents. You're gonna get, you know, gonna get a hurt real bad if you you know, try to hit your parents as like a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old toddler going through your terrible twos or whatever. So instead, you just hit the table, or you hit, or you hit yourself, like no, like you have a tantrum. So my mom would say like, "Oh, hit harder, hit harder. That's too soft. You need to hit harder, like like as a going through your terrible twos." So my mom didn't really put up with temper tantrums, and yeah, she had like a great balance, like in terms of not spoiling us, but also always being supportive and loving us. So both me and my sister. So, yeah, she would buy me clothes. I don't like clothes shopping. I don't like going, and it's just like it takes so much time finding something that you like, and I don't like shopping in general. So my mom was like, well, why are your clothes have holes in them? Like you need to throw it out. Go get something new. And yeah, well, I'll when I find the time. So she would just go and get stuff for me. And some of it I would like, and some of it I said, I don't really like this, and she would take it back. But things like this, yeah. So many good memories. With my mom, we would travel, like traveling in Iran when we were kids. The last time I went to Iran, I was like 12 years old, so long time ago. But yeah, we went to Iran and took a road trip throughout Iran, which is, Iran has a lot of beautiful nature, and we'd also went camping. We would go camping. One time we went on a boat. There were several times we'd go on boats, and she would get seasick. She had motion sickness. I also have motion sickness, so we can't. So we'd be on boats, but she wanted to go on a boat, but she couldn't stomach it for too long on the water. Also, roller coasters. Had a hard time with roller coasters. Just the motion of a roller coaster would make her sick. So we couldn't really do that, but we enjoy other things. So that's, yeah, my mom loved to travel. She loved to go out to see nature, and we would do a lot of that together. So a lot of good memories. Do that, like spend more time with your parents. As an adult, you have your spouse, you have your kids, but you can't forget your parents. Like you can't just cut them off, even if you're not actually cutting them off, but practically you're cutting them off because you're not spending much time with them. You're going to regret that. So keep that in mind. The other thing about my mom is that she's always encouraging. Like she was, and this is the case with most moms. They are very encouraging. They're always proud of you. They're always, even if they don't agree with you on everything, they're always supportive and loving. And dads are also loving, but it's not exactly the same. And if you're a son, especially, you know that your relationship with your dad, you as a son want to make your dad proud. And your dad is going to be less open and expressive of his approval of you. That's just the nature of how dads are. Even with my own kids, I love my kids to death and I'm so proud of them, but I'm more measured in doling out the praise. I'm more measured in doling out or expressing that to my sons. That's just how dads are, and it's very important. Because it's the mom's job to be just very expressive and supportive and always loving. That's the mom's job. And the dad provides balance to that. And that's the beautiful dynamic that you have of your mom and your dad. And if you're a son, that really helps you in life. Because if both parents are constantly giving you approval, you don't have like unconditional approval and support, then you don't really have the same kind of motivation to succeed or to pursue things in life. It's like I always have the image of my dad in my head of wanting his approval, wanting to make him proud, and that's a big motivation for a lot of the things that I do in life, and a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the the stress that I have. But that's natural. That's completely natural. And we need that. That's Allah has made the nature of dads like that and moms like that to make a perfect balance for kids. So my mom was like that, always supportive, always saying that she's so proud of me. And I never felt like I have to prove anything in terms of accomplishments to my mom. Never felt that need. With my dad, yes, and that's just the nature of being a son. So I'm sure that many of you can relate to that. And now, like, dealing with, it's been about a week now without my mom, it's really difficult. Like everything reminds you of your parents, and you just go back to the last days, weeks, months, and you still have like my kids will do something funny or they'll do something special, and my first reaction is, oh, let me tell my mom. Like, oh, let me send a message to my mom. And then it takes you a second to realize, oh, I can't send her any more messages. I can send her, she won't receive any more messages. So that's what you go through. You feel like sharing moments, but you can't really share them anymore. So yeah, so don't take it for granted with your parents. Don't take it for granted. Call your parents every day. Call them every day, share with them as much as you can. Take, these things mentally, like just preserve them, because those are provisions for you. When they're gone, those memories are what are gonna help you. Okay, so, appreciate you listening in. I didn't want to make this too long of a live stream. Just wanted to share with you, and I'll just share some lessons that hopefully will be beneficial for you about dealing with this situation. So one of the challenges is that when you lose a parent is that throughout your life, you always feel like, most of us, like your parents are there for you. Your parents will always be there to take you in. There's no one else in life that you have that level of relationship with. No one in the dunya is going to have as much mercy for you than your parents. And you might not consciously realize that, but subconsciously you know that. Subconsciously, it's there in the back of your mind that no one will have as much mercy on you in this dunya, in this life, other than your parents, or as much as your parents, especially your mom. Not your spouse, not your friends, not your siblings, not other family members. There's no one. So even if you don't even get along with your parents, even if you don't really get along with them, to them you're always going to be like that baby that they held in their arms. You're all in their minds. You're always going to be that baby, and they're always going to have that level of mercy and love for you, a kind of unconditional love that no one else will have for you in this dunya. So when they're gone, that is like a dark shadow, because there's a void. No longer do you have that safety net. No longer you have that comfort, that person that's there in your life. And you feel that void. So it's very important, like Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Isra, that you have to lower your wings of humility and mercy for your parents. And you say, my Lord, have mercy upon my parents as they brought me up when I was small. So what Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Isra. So it's so critical that you have mercy on your parents. You humble yourself. Make yourself humble. Have humility. Don't raise your voice. Even if you're right, even if you're correct Islamically about something, you have to maintain humility, humbleness, mercy, because there's no one else like your parents in this dunya. And when you don't show that humbleness and that mercy, then it's like you're throwing one of the greatest ni'mah, one of the greatest blessings that Allah has given you in life. It's like you're throwing it out with ingratitude. Don't be an ingrate. Don't be an ingrate to your parents and Allah, your creator. Treat your parents well before it's too late, because there's few things that you'll regret more than that you raised your voice, you talked back, you weren't there, you were arrogant, you left in a huff, like those kinds of things. You're going to regret it. You're really, really, really going to regret it. So just remember what Allah says. Lower the wings of humility and mercy to your parents, even if you're right, even if let's just assume that you're right on some disagreement. Now, obviously, when we know that if your parents are telling you to do something haram, you don't disobey Allah in order to obey your parents. You always have to obey Allah first and foremost. But even if you have to disobey your parents because they're telling you to do something that's haram, how are you disobeying them? You still have to be humble. You still have to have humility. You still have to have mercy. You still have to have grace and kindness and meekness before your parents, even if they are legitimately, objectively wrong. Even assuming that does not give you an excuse to raise your voice, to act arrogant, to be uncharitable, to turn your back, to cut ties, to not be there when they need you. You don't have an excuse for that. There is absolutely no excuse. And all of the Anbiya, their relationship with their parents is very clear. Like Abraham and how he spoke with his father, the idol maker who was literally making idols. And how is Ibrahim speaking to his own father with respect and kindness and mercy? So another lesson is you have the opportunity as a child to bring a lot of joy to your parents' life. That is a gift that you can give to your parents. And the worst thing that you can do is to withhold that. So your parents have gone through many difficulties, many hardships, but by being a good son or daughter, you make it worth it for them in many ways. You ease their burden, you ease their difficulty. So that love that you can give your parents, that love as a child, there's no replacement for that. Every parent wants their child to love them, to be kind to them. You have the power to give that gift, so do not withhold it. Don't deprive your parents. Even if your parents have mistreated you, that's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. Even if they've mistreated you, they've been unjust to you, you still should give them that gift of your love. Be expressive. Express that love. I love you. And praise them. You did so much good for me. I have nothing to complain about. Even if that's not literally true. Like maybe they've mistreated you. Just lie. Say, I have nothing to complain about. Okay, sometimes you do have to raise objections. Maybe if you're being treated unjustly, you, with respect, with humility, you say like, this is not fair, maybe in any given situation. But at a certain point, like if they're not responsive to that, okay, well then forget about that. Like you just swallow the injustice or any mistreatment, if that's real, if that's the case, and just express love. And that's not the case with me. Like I literally have no complaint about my mom. She never did anything to mistreat me or be unjust to me. I'm saying for the benefit of you watching, because you might say, well, okay, Daniel had a great relationship with his mom and mashallah, but I don't. So what he's saying to me is not applicable. What I'm telling you is, no, just assume like that your mom or your dad, they have mistreated you. They have been unjust to you, maybe. Even then, do not deprive them of love and your approval and your appreciation. Even if that's not fully the case, like still express that to them. That's the best gift that you can give your parents. Is to tell them that I had an amazing childhood. You treated me. You just raised me so well. All the things I enjoy, so much of it is due to you. Give them that approval because you don't want your parents dying thinking that my child doesn't approve of me, doesn't love me, my child. Like that's a kind of regret, or that's a kind of... what's the word? You are insecure. It's an insecurity that all parents have. That am I raising my child right? Have I done well by my child? Have I mistreated my child? Every parent, okay, most is insecure about how they raised their children. And unfortunately, we live in a culture nowadays where any failure that you have, you immediately blame your parents. Like, oh, I couldn't, I'm not a successful millionaire because my mom and my dad, they didn't put me in the best schools, or they didn't give me enough discipline, or they gave me too much discipline, or the reason that I have this kind of depression is because my mom didn't hug me enough, or this or that, or they were too religious, or they were not religious enough, or this and these. So this is a culture of blaming parents. This is toxic. This is destructive. This is extremely destructive. We cannot blame our parents for our failures. And it's skirting accountability for yourself, frankly, but also it does such extreme harm. And because of this culture, parents have become so insecure. Parents have become very insecure, like, oh, my child failed, or my child is not where he or she could be because of things that I've done. Or maybe I should have done things this way. Maybe I should have done things the other way. So one of the greatest gifts that you can give to your parents is to relieve these anxieties, relieve these insecurities. Even if they don't express these insecurities to you, they won't. Most of the time they won't. Or the way that the insecurities actually come out, if you're observant, is with your kids. They will tell you how to raise your kids. And when they get, and sometimes that can be annoying. They tell you how you should, treat your kids, how you should raise them, how you should discipline them or not discipline them, what school they should go to, etc. They're part of what they are doing when they do that is they are trying to cope with their own insecurity about how they raised you. So that's how you can recognize it, but it's always there. Like it's always there for them in the background, even if they don't express it. So the greatest gift that you can give them, no matter what has happened in the past, and no matter what the situation is in reality, is to say that, I love you. You did a great job. Alhamdulillah, everything that I'm enjoying is your efforts have helped and contributed to that. Make sure you express that to your parents, not just once or twice, but it needs to be something that is said. The other lesson that's important, make arrangements in advance. It's painful. The thing is that it's painful and it's awkward to make arrangements for death because we're programmed to just put death outside of mind. Don't think about what's going to happen. Don't think about the janazah. Don't think about the burial. Don't think about the inheritance. Don't talk about those issues. We don't talk about death. Just put it out of mind. But you have to go against that because it just makes things much, much harder if you don't. Go through the awkward conversation, and it's painful. It's not only awkward, it's extremely painful. And involve the family and make things clear. Make sure that a last will and testament, that is filed, it's official. Make sure it is Islamic and abides according to Islamic inheritance laws. Make those arrangements in advance because, again, that's one of the problems of living in the West or living in a non-Muslim country or increasingly living in Muslim countries. They don't enforce necessarily inheritance laws according to the Sharia, according to the Quran. So you have to do that in advance, and you have to have that conversation with your parents. It's very painful, and you don't want to do it. You don't want to talk about it, but you need to do it. It's going to be much worse if you don't. That's the advice that I want to give you. It just creates chaos if you don't do that in advance. And for yourself as well, like when you're in that position in advance, like there's no reason, if you're an adult, you should have a last will and testament filed. If you're an adult from a young age, it doesn't matter if you're in your 20s, if you're in your late teens, even in your late teens, you probably don't have many possessions to give away as inheritance, but definitely by your 20s, you're going to have property. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ says in hadith, like every believer has to have this ready because you don't know when death is going to strike. And you should not have this view that, I'm going to live 80 years, 90 years. No, you don't know when the life is going to be cut short. Cut short from your perspective. You were always, Allah had written for you when you were going to die before you were even born. So it's not short. It hasn't been cut short. Maybe from your perspective or the perspective of your loved ones, but everyone has an allotted portion in this dunya. You have a responsibility, a Shari'i Islamic responsibility to have that last will and testament. So you might know that, get that prepared, but if your loved ones, your parents don't necessarily know that, you have to help them And it can be a very difficult conversation, but this is your duty as a son or daughter. And my final advice, as I mentioned before, is just be there as much as possible for your parents, especially if they are terminally ill, or they're just much senior in age. Try to be there and try to keep them in their home. Don't move them. Don't move them to some other location. Don't move them to, a facility. Keep them in their homes. You go there. You go there. And I see people do the opposite, not necessarily Muslims, but some non-Muslims. They want to move. They want things to be convenient for them, but don't ask your parent, like, oh, are you okay with moving to my house, like, so I can better take care of you? It's more convenient for you. It's not. They'll say, sure, yeah, no problem, but it's not convenient for them. It's painful, especially when they're older. When you live in your own house, you're comfortable. You know where everything is. It's your own house. You're not a guest. If you go to your child's house, you're like a guest and you don't feel at home because it's not your home. Don't do that to your parents. Even if you have to travel, make arrangements. You go live there. You be the guest when you're trying to help out. When you're trying to provide that support and that comfort. That's a big thing. That's a big thing that I don't know if people realize is it's not appropriate. Like you're actually causing harm when you take a parent out of their home where they've lived for maybe decades. And you think you might tell yourself that, oh, I'm a good son. I'm taking my mom and I'm bringing her to my house so I can take better care of her. Don't fool yourself. Like you're not actually doing her a favor. You're causing her harm. You're causing her difficulty. And I know that there are circumstances that you can't really help. And obviously, those are there as well. But as much as you can, if you can avoid moving them out, I highly recommend it. You don't want them to be uncomfortable. It causes discomfort. It causes disorientation. And it's not fair. And you don't want, by the way, anything that you do to your parents, expect your kids to do that to you. That's one of the laws. That's one of the sunan. That's one of the things that we see in this dunya. Children who mistreated their parents, their children end up mistreating them when they get into the same situation. So if you're not afraid of Allah, if you don't fear Allah, and you don't have that kind of taqwa to have mercy on your parents, then at least have self-interest, because everything that you do unfairly and unjustly to your parents, that's going to come back to you. Your children are going to do that to you. So let that be a warning. Okay, so may Allah have mercy on my mom. May Allah forgive her. May Allah expand the qabr and protect her from any adhab, any kind of punishment, and forgive her and grant her Jannat al-Firdaus. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Please make dua for my mom. And now I'm going to go to the super chats, inshallah, and just general comments. Palestina Viva, Jazakallah khair for your super chat. May Allah have mercy and forgiveness on your mother and all mothers, all the believers dead and alive. Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair, SYA. You're very generous as always. Give good news to those who patiently endure, who say when struck by a disaster, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They are the ones who will receive Allah's blessing and mercy, and it is they who are guided. Ayah from the Quran, Jazakallah khair. May Allah ease your period of mourning for you and your family. May Allah forgive your mother and have mercy on her. Don't let the trolls get to you. Vast majority of people are not like them. Yeah, Jazakallah khair, brother or sister. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know. The trolls are just trolls. Like, better to ignore them. Awaken, thank you so much. May Allah grant your mother Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. I've benefited you from a lot, Akhi, and I pray Allah accepts your deed as going as charity for her. Ameen. Very happy to hear that. That's very kind of you to say, brother. Famo says, this made my heart sink. I'm sorry, brother. May Allah grant your mother the highest level of Jannah with no accountability. Habibi Daniel. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Appreciate it, Habibi. Thank you so much for your generosity and your kind words. Let's see. Sorry, brother, for your loss. Allah yarhamuha. Appreciate it. Adam, appreciate it. Let's see. May Allah deal with Saddam. Allah already dealt with him. Let's see. Appreciate your super chat, brother. The True One. Appreciate your super chat. I lost my mom many years ago as a child to this disease, and it was a traumatic event that changed me forever, and I never recovered from it. May Allah reward you for your patience, brother. Yeah, it's very difficult. Like, this is one of the most difficult things you'll go through as an adult, especially when you lose a parent as a child. You don't have as much life experience and time with your parents to understand what's happening. Even though it's arguably more difficult to lose a parent when you're a child, so you're gonna face a lot more challenges. But sometimes the pain is more acute when you're an adult and you lose your parent. So that's something many of us will go through, if not all of us. Jazakallah khair. May Allah grant your mother the highest place in Jannah. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. My father also says, hit harder to my brother. Yeah. And so my parents like to troll me sometimes. And I deserve that. I deserve to be trolled. So it started when I was a young boy. May Allah have mercy on her and forgive her. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Chocolate Walla, always appreciate you, brother. She raised a warrior. I'm sure you'll be a big sadaqah jariyah for her. I'll be reading some Quran for her. Thawab for her. Stay strong, brother. Appreciate it, bro. Jazakallah khair. Really appreciate it. Brother Muhammad, appreciate it. Allah yarhamu your mother, wa yarham mine, wa jamil muslimin wal muslimat. Much love, brother Daniel. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you, brother Suleiman. Indeed, we belong to Allah, and to him we return. Brother Daniel, may Allah have mercy on your mother, forgive her fully, and grant her the highest place in paradise. May Allah bless all our mothers, shower them with mercy, and reunite us with them in paradise. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. That's our wish. That's our desire. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. May Allah grant her Jannah. Best regards from Kosovo. Very generous of you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother Asad. May Allah grant your mother Jannatul Firdaus, and may Allah reward you for this eye-opening talk. This was a wake-up call. May Allah make it easy for you. Ameen. Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Appreciate it. Okay, just looking at the chat now for the last few minutes. If you have something that you want to put in the chat, I'm looking. Hannah says, my dad passed away when we were young. I was 1 year and 10 months old. I don't remember him. May Allah have mercy on him. Allah yarhamuhu. Sad to hear that. May Allah give you strength and resilience. Thanks for sharing your experience. Hoping it was healing. Only Path. Thanks, brother. Beneficial live stream. Glad to see you in the chat, bro. Yeah, the book that I read you is about any kind of end of life. It's not necessarily cancer, right? It's not necessarily cancer. It's any kind of terminal disease, but also just getting older. Like it seems like this is the common pattern that your body goes through, and it's just slowly shutting down. So don't think like this is just cancer. Obviously there are certain diseases that will have like other major effects on the body, and there'll be differences than what I described to you, but this is like a generalized end of life that is applicable to maybe the majority. Qamardeen, appreciate you. May Allah grant her peace in the grave and in Jannah. Ameen. Barakallahu feek. May Allah make it easier for you, Brother Daniel. Take as much time as you need to mourn and spend time with your father. Appreciate it. Allah bless your beloved mother, Daniel. Allah make your sadness into joy. Ameen. Appreciate it. Jazakallah khair. Daniel, what's your plan going to be now after this? Nothing is going to change. Inshallah, we're going to continue to do the work. As long as Allah gives us life to do the work, we continue. That's the plan. And, I appreciate everyone's support. May Allah grant your mother Jannah and may you be blessed. Ameen. Thank you so much for your generosity. Sadaqah Jariyah for your parents from Abu Saleh. Appreciate it, Akhi. When my brother passed away, reading the Quran helped me recover from grief a lot. Yeah, that's something that I should mention too. Like, not only I would not just read the Quran after, but when you're in the last weeks or months even, or days, read the Quran to your parents. Like, just read, but read it, make sure it's not annoying them. Because sometimes they just want to sleep. So if you're reading, they can't sleep. Or it could disturb their sleep. So just make sure you're not disturbing them. But you can read the Quran just in a very soft voice. And that is comforting to them. And it's comforting to you. Because that helps get into, again, out of this dunya and into the akhirah. That's what the main purpose of Quran. Not only just in terms of the meaning of the Quran, but in the state or the hal of reading Quran, reading the words of Allah, reciting them. So this is a cure for so much, is the Quran. Read it to your parents, especially if they're on their deathbed. And Surah Yasin definitely is important to read. Surah Yasin, and you can recite it in 10 minutes. If you recite it slowly, 10-15 minutes max. My father is under palliative care. Not much time left. He's in the room next to mine. It all feels surreal. Death is the best reminder. I'm 20, don't know how to navigate this. My heart goes out to you, brother. Or I guess brother or sister. So it's Yeah, it's very surreal. That's a good word to describe it, because this is something that you dread. Like, I remember. So when you are growing up as a child, around maybe age 4, 5, 6, 7, it depends on the person. That's when you first understand the concept of death. And when you first understand the concept of death, there's a dread that you experience. And the dread of two things. You realize that you're going to die. You are mortal, you will die. And then your parents will die. And that fills you with dread. So this is something that you've been dreading since you were a child. Maybe you don't remember it. I remember it. The realization and where I was and how I felt, and made me cry. But you might not remember when it happened, but it happened to you. It happens to everyone, every child. So you've been dreading the loss of your parents since you were a child. And now it's happening. Now you might have forgotten that dread. You might have forgotten that feeling, but it all comes roaring back. So, yeah, just try to be there. You're in the next room, go to his room as much as you can. Hold his hand, tell him how much you love him, tell him how much, everything that he's done for you, that you'll never forget him. Make dua, read Quran, like all of these things that we've been talking about. So may Allah ease your situation and forgive your father and all of our parents. Brother Daniel, can't wait to see you again in Bradford. I'll do dua for your mother here in blessed Medina. Jazakallah khair, Brother Munir. That means a lot, especially dua in Medina. Hopefully we'll see each other soon. Why is it so hard to tell your parents you love them? Yeah, it can be hard, but just get through it. Get through it. Maybe especially like your dad. Maybe for guys, it's harder because it's hard to share feelings and emotions with your dad. But try to get through it. You're going to regret not expressing your love and affection for your mom and dad. So it's hard. If it's hard for you, just power through. Yeah, when they're healthy and with you, you need to be proactive. Don't wait till the end. When I was 3, my father was killed. I didn't know what death was or why people were crying. Yeah, subhanAllah. I can't imagine being a child and losing my parents. That's a big blessing that I've had, is having my parents with me for all of my life until just last week. But memorize Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran. It'll go to deeds to your parents. Inshallah, yeah, reading Quran, memorizing good deeds. Inshallah, it can reach our parents. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Daniel. Please accept this sadaqah from my behalf. You have had a great and positive influence on my life. Please continue to do what you do, and may Allah convert the sins of your mother into good deeds and grant her Jannatul Firdaus. Wa alaikum assalam. Ameen. Really appreciate your sadaqah. That's very generous of you, and I appreciate your kind words and dua. Andros, appreciate you. Sorry for your mother's loss. Thank you, Agent. Black Agent, appreciate it. Okay, guys, I really appreciate all your comments. I'm going to read them after the stream. There's just too many comments for me to go through, but I want to read all your comments just for myself. And I will do that, inshallah, but I don't want the stream to go too much longer, past 2 hours. Hopefully this was beneficial reminders for you and lessons that I wish like I was more prepared and I had known about earlier. So that's why I want to convey them to you. Hopefully you found them beneficial and positive. Inshallah, we're going to continue the work. As I said, that's our plan. And hopefully I'll be more active. I'm slowly ramping things back up, back into gear. But things will be more consistent because I won't have the same travel back and forth to California. So inshallah, things will be more consistent and we'll have a lot of great content coming for you and a lot of big announcements coming for you as well. Things that we're preparing, big projects, and hopefully you can benefit from them and support us. What has happened recently politically with current events, I'm going to have a stream on that. Syria, for example, some of you are asking. That live stream is going to be tomorrow. So we're going to have Haqiqatjou tomorrow, and it'll be a nice presentation for you. I'm going to bring you hopefully some insights that you're not getting from elsewhere about the situation politically in the Middle East and what's happening. I have not had much time to follow all the details or to post online. Every now and then I'll have been posting something, but really haven't had the time. But tomorrow it'll be a full analysis, inshallah. And come to that stream. You can put stuff in the chat, agree or disagree with what I have to say. No problem. We will have that conversation tomorrow, bi'ithnillah. And I'll post the live stream schedule after this one, inshallah. So again, I appreciate everyone's dua. I appreciate all of your super chats, your regular chats. It means a lot to me if you could make dua for my mom for her forgiveness. I appreciate it. I know she appreciates it. And you were also very supportive when she had the diagnosis, and you made a lot of dua for her then as well. So may Allah accept and put in the scale of good deeds and accept all of your dua. And I really, really love you guys for all of that support. So barakallahu feekum. And I'll see you very soon, inshallah, on the next episode of Haqiqatjou. So inshallah, until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.